Hello there. So what we're going to
Hello.
do, hello. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off today with your empowered session. So this is your first time having an empowered session with me. And I know up to this point, it's not like you and I haven't chatted. This point, it was time to try on the empowered session, see what it was all about. And so I wanted to make sure that you're a bit aware as to what we're going to do. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cycle that you're in for the year. Okay, just to kind of remind you, because even though you've had your reading already with me for the year to set yourself up, as well as you did the monthly forecast. So it's like, right, at this point, what cycle numbers you're in for the month
And day.
or advice with, and or you're looking for some intuitive skill to come into play for guidance, it ends up that I'm going to utilize some of the numerology information based on your birth date, as well as knowing the cycles that you're in. And then as just the relationship part of me getting to know you a bit better, I'm able to give you a little bit of information. And it's not that I'm going to be the one that knows everything to be able to help you. What it is that I'm going to give you information that you can utilize yourself so that you can help guide yourself and or have more clarity. Okay. So I'm hoping that that's going to work out for you today. So I hope you're excited to get going. Just as a bit of a reminder, of course, you know yourself that you're in a cycle 5 for the year. So when it comes to this year for you, it's all about change. Would you say you've had a
Yeah.
little bit of change going on?
Oh, just a little bit. It seems to be nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. And honest to goodness, it's like anytime that I find out someone's in a cycle 5, it's wonderful. It's an experience and it's adventure. But most definitely, one of the biggest things that I always say to people is that the only thing that's consistent in a cycle 5, a year 5 theme, is change. So, and it's like that idea of like when you think you've had the last moment of change, something still changes.
Yeah.
Right.
When I think I figured it out, it's gone again. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm all right with this. I can the flow on this. And then it's like, oh, I'm going over here now. So that's the part sometimes that's hard, right? Especially if we're not balanced, or if it ends up being that we're in our head trying to fight it, right? So the idea of trying to be able to embrace the change, I think, is a big one. I know for myself in the year 5, what I did specifically is I always choose a word of the year. And in my year 5, it ended up being the word that I chose for the year was change. And it was about embrace change, right? Because if you're someone that likes to be able to, whether in control and that's a bad thing, or it's just the idea of being in control, your things out for everybody, and including yourself, it ends up being that it's like it's harder for you sometimes maybe to pivot in order to do that change part because you're trying to fix, right? And so the biggest thing is that I don't know if you've had this awakening yet, because we're in April, where it ends up realizing it's like you have to be open to the change so that the fight is over, right? Because if you're constantly trying to fight that change, it makes it that much harder.
And I feel like I did go into it fairly open. Like I wasn't afraid of it. I never have been afraid of change. But I think the struggle that for me is that I am a fixer, right? I'm very proactive. I'm like I don't sit on things very often. So I think the hard part for me is that I kept thinking I got this figured out. And then I, go all in, and because I think I've got it figured out, but then I'm like, nope, that's not, the universe is telling me, yeah, you don't have this figured out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the change is always there for our highest good. It's there for us so that we can learn new experiences and have different adventures. And sometimes with change, right, whether you're a person that's really good with it or not, it ends up being that it's like that idea of being open to what's there as the adventure, right? And or that's giving you a different experience. So sometimes the change doesn't feel so good, but it ends up being that there's usually an answer and or a reason as to why it's happening, and it is for your highest good. Okay. So even if it ends up being for somebody where it's a breakup or someone's lost a job and that's part of a change, at the end of the day, a lot of the reasons for it is that maybe you still are fighting the idea that it's not a good thing, but it can end up being that your eyes will be open the more open you are to what else is coming because of that closure, that ending, that change. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, I know just by chatting with you and doing different sessions with you that you are, you know, you've gone through a lot of change this year, and just a lot of ups and downs. Right. And you
Yeah.
know what? In some cases, who the hell hasn't, right? Because we've
True.
been in a pandemic, we've had so many people dealing with emotions, arguments, judgment, advocacy, all those different things, right? So it's like a big part of it. So with you right now, right? So you're in that cycle 5. So yes, we're going to talk about the idea of change, but it is for you and for your highest good. The other thing too is new experiences. Okay. So being open to new experiences and adventures. And again, it can very well be that it could be that the adventure and the experiences are all about you right now. And perhaps
True.
maybe it's always been that you focused on helping everybody else. Now it's the new experiences, the new changes for you. And or it could very well be that it ends up that there's stuff going on around you, and so then it ends up being that you can help with the change yet and or the experiences, but at the same time it's also looking at making sure how you're balanced. So it's like you being able to learn how you are and how you end up being, that it's like what your relationship is like and or your connection is to the change, the new experiences, all those kind of things. It's like eye-opening moments, like constantly, right?
Yeah, what it feels like. Like it's not and it's, I wouldn't say it's all big things, like but I think for me it's figuring out like what, when that door closes for what, however the universe decides to show me that door is closing,
Yeah.
you know, how to then do that pivot. And I am a firm believer that, you know, good things come out of all bad. Like I that is something I've always believed, that there's, you know, I can find some good in pretty much anything. But am I truly embracing that, right? Like am I keep getting thrown, whether it's because, you know, I have chronic sore throat, which means letting go, whether it's because I have pain in my knees all the time, which is another sign of not letting go. Like I keep getting thrown, like being shown
Yeah.
these things, but I don't know what it is I'm supposed to let go of. Like now I'm finding it's like, okay, I get it. You know, I'm being hit left, right, and center. I get it. I need to let go. I need to, but what? Like, how do you figure that part out, right?
Yeah. I think that the biggest thing is trusting that where you are is exactly where you need to be. Right.
Mm.
And so what happens is a lot of time, if we are that fixer or we're that person that's trying to figure it all out, sometimes we lack the clarity because we're not balanced and or we're not being in the now because we're
No,
trying to fix and figure it out. Right.
yeah.
So one of the things is that, so for instance, you know how when we did your monthly forecast, we looked at your months and how your cycle was also going to change every month. Okay.
Yes.
So it ends up that we're in the month of April. And so for you in particular, the cycle that you're in for the month of April is a 9. Okay. So a 9 represents healing. It represents endings,
Yep.
completions, and letting go. Okay. And so the biggest part with this is that you're always, so whatever cycle you're in for the month, you're always thinking about, it's like, yes, you want to focus on where you're at and understand. And it's kind of like go with the flow of things. You know what? I understand I'm in this situation right now because there's something I need to release and to let go of. And or is part of the endings releasing part of it the mindset of that I have to fix and do everything. Okay.
Mhm.
So the
Yeah.
example I'm going to give you is that, for instance, myself, I'm in a cycle 9 for the year. So one of the biggest things that I've been focused on so far in the first quarter is that what I was really aware of is that there was some mindset that I needed to let go of. And so for
Right.
me, one of the things was, I focused, or I realized that one of the things I say a lot is I just can't win.
Oh, yeah, okay. Whereas I think, yeah, I'm one of
And
those, then, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen next?"
yeah, and I'm always like, "Oh my gosh, don't say that," right? It's like, "No, I
Yeah.
didn't mean it."
Yep.
But the whole idea behind it, right, is it's like, yes, there's endings and completions, and there could be that, jobs are ending. It could be that a relationship is ending, but it also can be your own mindset. It can be you releasing and letting go that you don't have to do everything, or that
Right.
everything has to be done right now, right? So that's part of it. Then what happens is that, so it's like, that this month specifically is about endings, and it ends up being that it's about releasing and letting go. And in there, it only makes sense, right? If you're able to let go, you're able to heal. You start to heal. Okay.
Right.
And so I think that for you, maybe part of when we look at your cycle for the year and it ends up being it's about change, new experiences, could it be that you having an ending or releasing and letting go, that you don't have to take on everything, and or that you have a mindset specifically that it's like the change is happening, so you're maybe overwhelmed, or you had to get shut down because you've had to have some time off at work, because it ends up being that you needed to have that change so that you'd be able to realize, you know what, I have some stuff I need to let go of, because otherwise you weren't going to do it.
No, no, and I mean, I've certainly been, and I think I had the intention of doing it, right?
I
Like, I
know.
think at the end of last year, I really, really got into that the mindset had to change. Like, I knew that that was kind of an area that I really wanted to focus on, and, so that I think the awareness was there, but then, yeah, maybe I feel like I almost feel like I'm going through the motions and I'm not actually doing something that I'm supposed to be doing. And then, it's been nonstop. Like each month, something has happened to force me down, right? And
Mhm.
so it's figuring, where like that out. Like and I have changed a lot. Like I know I have. I can see it at work and I can see it in a lot of different places, but obviously there's still something I'm, you know, missing or not.
But
Maybe that's
this is a lifetime thing. Like, are you a
true.
person that is likes to achieve, likes to like end up completing things,
Oh
likes
yeah.
to have the structure, likes to be organized? And
Very
so the fact that
yeah.
your life feels like you don't have everything and all your shit together, that it's like, oh, I'm still learning, I'm still doing this thing. I need to tell you, and I know you would be able to tell this to a friend, okay? Because I know who you are in this way. It gets down to the fact that it's like it's always going to change. Things are always going to change. You're always, you know what, is on a regular basis. Because imagine if you didn't, how boring.
Very true.
So it ends up being like, I absolutely agree. Like I've known you since January of what, 2021. Where
Yeah.
you and I were introduced to each other through numerology sessions. And so it is true. I see how open you are to working on and taking care of you, realizing where, sometimes, so part of the lesson was, it's like, you're a humanitarian, right? You're a person that loves your family, takes care of people as much as possible. But what happens is it's like you had eye-opening moments where you realized it's like, I got to take care of me too,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't doubt for a second that you haven't changed. But you know what? I think be open to the fact that it's going to continue. And I think you know that, but I think sometimes what happens is we don't realize what we're saying, and or what, so when we're saying it, in many cases we've been thinking it for a while, right?
That's
So it's like,
yeah.
I know I've changed a lot, right? And it's like, and I know what, I feel like in some cases I'm mirroring some of that. I get it. I understand where you're at, because it's like you're always trying to achieve, you're trying to heal, you're trying to trust, you're trying to do all those things. And but at the end of the day, it's like sometimes just being is a big part of it too.
Yeah, and I guess that's actually very true, and that's a hard one, right? Like, as much
I
as I
know.
say, and I mean, I can say the words absolutely, and I know that we're supposed to be in the moment. I do think that's an area where I do really struggle because I'm not one so much for the past, but I'm always thinking ahead, right? Because I'm a planner. I'm a thinker. Like I am that is kind of who I've always been. So yeah, that being in the moment, like, it could be a big part of this, like, it really could.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, and it's like, it's not that I don't think you're not in many cases, right? It's just that sometimes when we are looking at, where we're at, or if we have a moment, right, where right home sick and off work right now for a little bit. So it ends up being that it's like we have time to think, right? We're processing, but in some cases, it can be a gift too that you've had time set aside. So even though, yeah, you had to go through the shitty part of not feeling well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of like rest and healing that's happening, which creates clarity, right? And then it's like what we do with some of the, even if it ends up being that you don't even know exactly what it is clarity wise, it's like you're coming at a more balanced state going into, going back to work, interacting with family, whatever it may be, because you took care of you. So no matter
Very
what, every situation now is going to be different because of it.
the fact that I have to, be pushed down so hard, does that mean I'm stubborn?
Resilient, I would like to use that word instead, and or you're empowered. You also are someone that is, so I'm looking at who you are. Okay. So who you are, the gifts that you came here with are that you're a compassionate person. You are a person that is a leader with a heart. You can't help it. It ends up being that you want to give, it's what lifts you up. But what happens is it's like that saying that I've come up with and I use it all the time. It's like you've just had some scenarios, and it's not every day, but it's like you're focused more on it right now because you've had some time off work, that because you're not well, it ends up being that it's like you're at that stage where it's like you're looking at what it is you've done, right? So it's like, okay, why am I like this? Why is it
Yeah.
that I, got this cold? Why am I not feeling well and I had to take a couple of days off work? Guess what? You needed rest, relaxation, and you weren't going to do it unless you ended up getting the cold.
Yeah.
And I can see this and I understand this because I'm guilty of the same thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. You are an executive with a heart. You're a person that no matter what is, you are going to persevere. You are a person that comes here with strength. You have a power about you that you're going to get shit done. You're
Yeah.
thorough. You're all those things. You are that person that it's going to be where it's like, no, 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 I'm going to still continue and do this because I know that this needs to be done. And, or I know that if I can help this, other people will benefit. Right. So it's like that part of it. So it's like, even though those are some of the traits that sometimes get us into trouble, because then we
Yeah.
give more than we have to give, it ends up being that they are the gifts you're meant to use, because that goes towards the destiny. But what happens is that it's like, just because you're the gift, you have those gifts and you came here with that, it doesn't mean that you 100% know how to use them all the right. And so the reminder of is sometimes in that learning scenario where it's like you've had to learn that if you give away too much of your power, or if you work too hard too long, you're not going to end up being balanced. And so then it makes it
Oh,
harder for you to take care of you.
well, my body's just not letting me do it anymore. Like, it really, that's kind of a big part of this last 2 months is that, like, for the first time probably ever, I think I've seen it here and there in my past, but never to this extent where I literally, my body is like, "You're done,
Yeah.
and you're going to listen," right? Whether you like it or not, and that's never happened to me so consistently as it has over this past few months.
And so again, some people may laugh at us, but it ends up that those are signs, right? It's like, so when I give Reiki treatment to people, right? And it ends up being where I even just talk to people if they're physically tired and are exhausted, or they have body parts that aren't working properly, right? It ends up being that you've got a really bad lower back, or you're, struggling with constipation, whatever it may be. Our body is talking to us. Our
Yeah.
body is letting us know. And I based on just doing and giving a lot of Reiki treatments and different things like that through just experience of my own journey, even my own with my own body, it ends up being that it's the mental and emotional and spiritual things that perhaps maybe we haven't answered to, and or that are over the top, that end up being that our body eventually is that last sign where it's like, you
Yeah.
know what? You're not going to be able to get up out of bed today because you're super exhausted and you're not going to work.
Well, the one interesting thing about this past being sick for this past week, prior to this week, I have been dealing, and I mean, it's been months. It's probably been at least 3 or 4 months of constant daily knee pain that like pretty, like it's there all the time. And it's been pretty a big focus of mine. Since I got sick this week, it's gone. And I'm like, interesting.
Mhm. And again, you know what? This is not for us to feel guilty
Yeah.
for where we put ourselves and or where we're at right now. They're just hopefully gentle reminders that there's certain things that you can answer to, or that it's like, looking at and taking the moment to process, so that even if it's just the fact that, you know what, you just need to slow down and rest. It's not that you have to go and do something completely different and go out and take a course to make everything better or whatever it is. It's the idea of it could be something where it's just you need rest, right? It
Yeah.
ends up being that you just need some TLC, some self-love, whatever it may be, so that, because the answers are all within, right? So it ends up being that if we take that, I always come back to self-love, taking care of ourselves so that we can balance ourselves out, which then allows us to be able to make decisions a little bit easier, be able to be tapped more into our intuition that much easier, right? Because it's a gut instinct. You don't second
Right.
guess yourself or have to ask a friend as to what to do next, because you automatically did it without even asking anybody in some cases, because the flow is there. It's like what makes you happy, right? And so, and I know what that feels like when you're in those moments. It's that it inspires you as well, right? When
Yeah.
you're able to go into that flow and to understand all of that. And so I think that, it's a matter of these ups and downs, these ebbs and flows are us having new adventures and us having different experiences. So if you can look more at the idea of, oh, damn, April, you've done it again. Here you are, you got sick again and you had to take work off. It's like, you know
Yeah.
what? Thank you for the lesson. I'm going to rest and rejuvenate. And I'm going to do my best to take care of myself and to kind of rest, rejuvenate, do whatever it is that I like to do. And at the same time, perhaps maybe it's looking at boundaries. It's the
Well,
idea.
it's huge because I have to say, I mean, this is I've always been, even with all of the upheaval, like in the early years with Courtney and her being sick, work was always my top priority. And I mean, not that she was not my top priority, that's not what I'm saying, but I was the type of person that I worked no matter what. Like I've never not done that, right? And work was my sanity for many, many years. And now this is really showing, like, I very much enjoy when I'm not at work now, which never happened. Like anybody who knows me prior to these last probably 4 months would be like, yeah, I don't stay home because I don't want to. And now I'm like, I love being able to stay home. It's just a total shift that I'm still trying to, and I think that's all part of this.
It's
It's that
called,
enjoy being with myself and in my house. And
you're evolving too, right? You're
yeah,
having a journey and an experience. And it is, you can see where sometimes perhaps maybe originally where it was like, probably when the whole change happened and you had to work from home and or there was different things, you didn't like that change. But now you
yeah,
see this, now you see and understand the silver lining, right? As to the doors that it did open. Yes, some closed, but then there's a different experience based on what it was that you, and you know what? It never ended up being that you might not have been able to like understand or see it for what it was in the beginning, but now you see,
yeah.
right? And so wouldn't you say that that in itself is
Told my
just,
manager I told my manager recently that I was no longer meant to work for 5 days a week.
Yes. Yes, I get it. I think that there's more people that are more awake to that, where
Yeah.
it's like they don't necessarily want to do that all the time. And not saying that there's anything wrong with the people that do want to work 5 days a week
Oh,
and
absolutely.
or more. It's just that you know where you are now, right?
Yep.
You have a better understanding. And sometimes it's like even a story that we tell ourselves, right? It's like all those things that we do. And then it's like, wait a second, I actually really enjoy being at home and not having a lot of work to do today,
That's
right?
like I being told I had to isolate. I was all over that. I'm like, that is not an issue. Like I would, I am not
Yeah. And before, right, it would have been like you
before.
didn't
Oh,
love the idea because you're a people person. It's like, I got to be
yep,
around people. But it's like
yep,
you can see where that all of that still can happen. And or it's like you can pick and choose when that is, and how now having certain boundaries and or changes that have happened to you, in some cases, if even if they've been forced, they've ended up being for your highest good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm starting to be able to say no, which, oh my God, I was the type of person that God, you never say no to anybody. You just have to do everything, right? Like if somebody wants you to go do this, you just got to go do it. You can't say no. You can't. Now, I mean, I found myself this last couple months being able to just honestly say no. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, which never, I would never have done that before. I would have done it anyway.
And haven't you found that there's been times where you would have felt guilty or you would have done it anyhow? Where when you
Yep,
have said no, that there's actually people that are okay with it, that really and truly it was all just in your head that you had to do it.
absolutely.
Yeah. And then did you have the experiences where you did say no and people got mad at you for it because they've always
Yeah.
been used to you saying yes?
Yep. Yeah. People don't understand it. I've had a lot of issues at work with that because I am the person that just does everything so me all of a sudden starting to put up some boundaries hasn't exactly went over well with some.
Mhm.
I've noticed that definitely a lot more at work. Whereas I think in my personal life, people were finally like, it's about damn time you stayed home and started relaxing a little. You know what I
I
mean?
think,
So
yeah, sorry. I think that what happens is that it's a test almost, right, for ourselves, even where it's like if we've really been bad at, or not bad, but just not able to say no more often. It's like you always want to help.
yeah.
And it's like as you start to practice it, you almost feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then when
Yep.
you come across the first one or two people that aren't really happy about the fact that you said no, it's like you're almost squirm a little bit, because it's like then you're telling yourself it's like, no, it's okay. Right.
Yeah.
And or it's like you just got to get through it. And I think it's like the more you practice it, the better you get. And then even the ones that perhaps maybe weren't too happy about you saying no and or choosing you first, instead, it ends up being that many of them will come around. It'll end up
Yeah.
being that they'll understand. And then what it does is it help create a change in the relationship. Then there may be still people that they won't like it enough that it'll end up being that it may be the end of that relationship, that connection, and that relationship has to change in some ways. In some cases, for some, it could very well be the ending part of it, right? Where it's
Yep.
like, you know what, I want to still be your friend. I still want to do this, but I can't do that anymore.
No, exactly.
Right. Because again, in some cases, it's like you've had that eye opening moment as to why, or it's like you ended up in a spot where it's like, you know what, this doesn't make me feel good anymore. Right. And
And
so I
I've
don't want to do that. So
yeah,
you're
enjoyed the difference, right? Like I found, yeah, once I realized that
choosing you.
oh, because I moved my phone.
Oh,
That's funny.
the glitches of live, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
So what were you were just saying that you were really realizing some of that
Well,
with
once
some
I
of the
got over like
changes?
the first few times of saying no to certain things and being okay with, like, I still struggle a little bit with some guilt sometimes, like we should be doing more, but then I'm like, no, who says we should be doing more, right?
Yeah.
Like who says I can't just enjoy being on my deck and not have to go do this and this. So I'm starting to challenge myself a lot more. Which is good, but and I find it's getting easier and easier to say no because it's happened, now that I've done it a little bit.
Mhm. I think what happens too is that what I'm seeing in you is that because you're evolving and things are changing, you're more aware. So even
Yeah,
if you're catching yourself in scenarios where you're like, oh, I didn't want to do this, or oh, here I am doing that again. The idea that you're aware is the success, right? Because
I
once
agree.
you're aware, it allows you situation. And it's like once you realize that, and perfect can be boring, right? So
Yeah,
again, it's like I just think that it's like you just being more aware of where you're at, what you're doing. It allows you to be able to heal. It allows you to be able to choose you. And it's not, I'm not saying to you like that's what your whole day and your whole life is all about, is now from now on all you're doing is choosing you. I think the
yeah,
biggest thing is that you're just more aware that you do need to pick yourself more often than not, right?
yeah,
And so some of the lessons have been there, but at the same time, it's like if you have it where you're having a day, a moment, whatever it may be, it's like even just recognizing it is a big success, you know?
and I feel like that's something I'm starting to do a lot better at, is that recognition sort of thing, and not beating myself up, right? Just moving on, recognizing and going, okay, and then carry on, right? And see
Yeah.
where things go from there.
No, I think that like to me it just sounds like the idea of you just being aware and you're giving yourself the grace that you would give someone else,
Yeah.
right? So if you're, it's like, because you have certain, sometimes we can have certain expectations of ourselves that we, because it's like you keep raising the bar. So
Yeah.
it's like, I think it's me seeing that that's what you're seeing and or you're understanding too, that that's where a lot of that change is. So that's
Yeah.
exciting,
It
super
is.
exciting. So that mindset, right? And that storytelling can be a part of some of the change perhaps that you're looking at this year, right? So, just a quick thing. I know we were talking about your cycle and the cycle, the theme that you're in for the month of April is that 9, which is endings and completions. But do you remember how also you can have support in a month, which is your key? Your key is the idea that you needed rest, rejuvenation, time to go within.
Because I assume I'm a 7, I think, this month,
You
right?
are.
Yeah.
That seven's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And
Gee.
so, yeah, surprise. And
Yeah.
that's what I've told people before. It ends up being like when I've done numerology readings and it's like we're talking about, their theme for the year. And it ends up being part of it is that the key is that you're talking about, you need to have time to rest, rejuvenate, go within, learn more things and all that kind of stuff. It ends up being that it's like if you don't make time for it, you will be forced to have time for it.
See, this is what happened when they tried to work 5 days a week for like 3 weeks in a row. Look what happened.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
get
And
told I
again,
can't.
you're aware, right? And so that's a
Yeah.
big thing. So that's one thing. The other thing is that, you being in um you're in a cycle 9 right now. So then you know that in May for you, you're going to be going into new beginnings, right?
Yeah.
You're going to end up standing on your own. You're going to have change because new things are about to happen. Okay.
Mm.
So that's a big part of that as well. And so we're always looking at the month that you're in. And it ends up being that we're always looking at, okay, how does that affect experiences? How does that affect adventure? How is that all about the change part of things, right? So it's like you're looking at how your theme to your year matches up and how it can work really well with your theme for the month. And the best way for me to explain it to you is that because your cycle for the year is about communication, it's about change, it's about new experiences. Every month you go in, it ends up being you're getting a new experiences as to how to have new adventures, how to have communication in a different way, all those different things, right? So it's giving you a lesson, but at a different angle every month.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is that when you're looking at, even just right now, where it's like, yes, you're focused on the fact that you're looking at endings and completions and things that are happening. That's why I always say to you is like to think about what year you're in. So it's like in the endings and completions, by me having these moments of being able to let go, how is that creating adventure? Is it making space and freedom for you? Right? It's like when we do a full moon ceremony, we write down all the things we want to release and let go of, perhaps. It ends up being, what are we doing? We're creating space for new to come, right?
True. Which I forgot to do yesterday.
So, and again, well,
Saturday.
The good news is, so yes, Saturday was the full moon in Libra, but the good news is it's always like 2-3 days before and 2-3 days after. So it's not too late.
I need to do that today. Feeling a
and you know what,
bit
at the end of the day, whether or not you use the full moon or not, it's like you can still do those things for yourself, right? So it's like, that's another thing too, is like, you can be aware and take advantage of the vibration, but don't limit yourself that it's like, oh, now I can't do it for the whole month.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Right. That was my little lesson, because it's like, even myself thinking that, right? It's like, if you miss it and it's like, then I guess I'm going to wait till next month. No, it's like me telling people when they create those vision boards.
Because I ended up crashing completely Saturday night, and my intention had been to do, and then I was like, nope, I'm done. And then yesterday was a write-off. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm done for this month. Like, I missed this one.
No, you didn't miss it. The other thing too is, think about this. You were healing while you were sleeping and taking care of you. So you were releasing
hours on the full moon. I see there. Maybe that's
so
why
you were releasing and letting go, and you didn't even, it has nothing to do with having, you can just have the intention, and whether you have it or not, it's like that idea of just knowing, right? That you were taking care of you, and that's all that mattered, right? And I think by you taking care of you helps you heal. And then healing, I think, always offers up releasing and letting go. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
So you're good, girl. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right. So I know you had a specific question, because you said you've been listening to some podcasts on numerology. And so I know you want to ask me something.
Yeah, I've been every month I listen to like a couple different numerology podcasts, and it really struck me at the beginning of April. I think just because of the difference, because of me being in a cycle 9 personally with my personal numerology, but in the yearly numerology right now, our 2022 numerology, April was a cycle 1. And it really struck me when I was listening to the podcast that, they were all about, it's a new beginning. This is the beginning of your new year. And, whereas I was not feeling that at the beginning of April, because I was feeling like I was still in the midst of letting, like really in that downward kind of letting go, and hadn't been feeling all that great. So I was like, what am I missing here? Right? Like, because I'm certainly not feeling, and I haven't felt in April, that I'm in the beginning, the fresh new start, and all of that. Right. And now with all of this, being sick for the last week, over a week, I definitely, I'm like, it just didn't fit for me.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't think months prior to this, it really struck me the way it did this month, that I'm like, I don't get it. How does this work?
Because I am so confused as to how this is working. So I think I can help. I'll at least maybe perhaps give you a little bit of clarity in regards to like how that all works. And so I don't know if you remember, I think you do, but it's like when we talk about, so numerology as a whole, when we're talking about universal energy, the cycle, so the year 2022 is a number 6. So it ends up being, it's all about, rejuvenating. It's about the humanitarian aspect, right? Of the responsibility, to be able to just, so the earth right now is ready to heal. It's ready to, as a community and as a whole, to repair. Okay. So just like you being in a 5, it ends up being that the universe, the energy of the world, has its own energy. Okay. So, and as yours has changed from month to month, so has the universe. So the universe right now is dealing with, or not dealing with, but is partaking in new beginnings and about standing on its own, having fresh starts, right? And change. Okay. So the reason why when you hear a podcast and they're talking about it, it's like, in order for someone to do a podcast and it would be just a reading just about you, there's no way of being able to offer that up unless it's a one-on-one in many cases,
Right.
unless they said, you know what, if you're in a cycle 5 this year, this is the number you're in right now for this month. Right now, what they're doing is they're offering up the information as the universe as a whole. So the energy that's going around in the entire world right now is that it's that humanitarian aspect of the world. It's like the communities, even though in some cases, some people feel that people are more divided than ever before. In many cases, there's still very much a big part of a specific community. Okay, so they end up being in a community that's more about this when it comes to advocacy, and or there's nurturing and healing going on here for this, and people are supporting, right? They're coming together in different ways. People might not be agreeing with each other, but they still have people and communities that they're doing that with. And so that's what the universe is doing as a whole. And so what happens is that they're talking about that, but then they're also then talking about that the cycle for the month of April is a 1. So the universe right now and the energy as a whole is experiencing new beginnings. They're experiencing the idea of standing out on its own. And so you can see yourself that we're in the beginning of the spring, right? So there's fresh starts that are happening even just at that. Then there's the part of, in last month in March for the universe, there was endings and completions. There was a lot of decisions being made. There was, doors being closed. There was releasing and letting go. Maybe perhaps even people that were judging and not necessarily getting along have kind of like softened a little bit. Okay. So when they're talking about that 1, they're talking about the universe. So it doesn't mean that you're not being affected and that you're not also to be a part of that energy and or experience it. It's just that it's like you have also your own. Okay. So in many cases, it ends up being that yours is going to feel stronger because you're in endings and completions. So what you're saying is like, what the heck? They're talking about it's time for new beginnings. I'm not ready for that. I don't even feel that. And I'm still in bed, by the way, because I'm not feeling well. Okay. So what happens in that case is that, yes, as a whole, if you were to look around at the community and everything, and or just people around you and what's going on with the earth and the world, new beginnings, fresh starts are happening. Okay. Then it ends up being, though, it's like, so you can partake in that and you can understand. So the more you know about numerology and the cycles of the universe, the cycle of your best friend, your kid, whatever, you can see why in some cases that it's like, okay, I'm in endings and completion, but the earth is all about new beginnings. So you know what, right now I'm confused because I don't feel like I'm ready for a new beginning yet.
Yeah. That might have been it. It was really strong for me that I went, as soon as I stopped listening to the podcast and went, yeah, this one's not working for me. I don't know. Like,
I don't know what this person's talking about. And again, it's like, what will happen over time is some of that stuff will click, but I think that, and it'll make more sense as it's like you learn more about your own experiences, how you're tapped more into your own numerology and your own empowerment. And then it ends up being that it's like you can see and understand why other people are being affected by the energy of the universe in a different way as well, right? So in some cases, for some people, it'll end up being that there's new beginnings and things that are happening, that it's going on. But it's like, if you're not feeling it, it makes it hard. And it might end up being that it's a little bit harder for you to embrace that.
There we go. We're back.
A little mini glitch. That's good. Yeah. So again, you know how it's like in many cases, you're a person that works well with other people. It ends up being that you're an empath. You take on the energy of others and or whatever. So the reason is it's kind of like you're feeling, I'm thinking that you're feeling like, it's like, okay, I'm feeling this and supposedly this is all going on around me. And it's like, you know what, at this point, that's okay. Because what? you're aware. It's like you had that moment of like, okay, that makes no sense to me. And it's like, because you know why? It ends up being that you're in the midst of endings and completions. But it doesn't mean that you yourself cannot partake in the energy of, and you will, whether you like it or not, of the new beginnings and everything else. So that's happening. But what it did is it kind of shook you up a bit, right? It made you kind of like want to learn a little bit more, understand a little bit more, create and find a little bit more information. Okay.
Well,
And
and part of me was wondering, am I just not wanting to, am I resisting this because I don't want to get back out there yet? Like, is some of it just me resisting? Like, this is all what went through my head. Like, is it that I'm not feeling it, or is that I truly am not ready to get back out there and take on, I've done a very good job of isolating for the last few months and I'm not sure that I'm ready to take back on people.
think about this too.
So,
Are you someone that struggles with endings and completions?
I don't feel like I do, but I think I just push down a lot, so I don't let myself actually feel and think about a lot of that, I think. So probably yes. I probably do
Okay.
struggle.
So by knowing what the universe and the energy as a whole is going through, which is the new beginning parts of things, right? And or standing on your own and or whatever, you can always look and see and understand that theme that the universe is dealing with right now, how that is affecting you. It's like you looking perhaps at endings and completions. What are you struggling, like, is there anything that you're struggling with when it comes to the new beginnings and the idea of like, is this like the first time that you're really looking at releasing and letting go of some mindset? Is this the
Yeah,
first
maybe.
time that you're okay with being shut down in your home and not being able to go to work?
Yeah, well, this is new. That is like these
And that's
last
all
couple
new.
months. Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm like, do I want to give that up? Like, but maybe I don't have to. That's my mindset, thinking that it's all or nothing, right?
Exactly.
Like,
That's a big
I'm
thing.
not sure that I'm ready. Like, I don't want to start going to, back out into the public the way I used to. I don't know that I want to go back to what we used to have. I'm not sure that that's who I am or anything that I'm interested in. I'm the type of person that in a lot of ways, even though I would never have known it, the pandemic for me was great because so I'm not sure I want to go back. So maybe that's part of what I'm fighting right now is just that, like, thinking the over generalization that everything's just going to go back to the way it used to be, and I don't want that.
Well, and that's just it. It's about its new beginning part of things, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like you're saying it out loud that you're enjoying being at home and you're doing all those
Yeah.
things. But at the same time,
I think that's the first time I've ever said that out loud, though, that I'm
okay.
resisting the going back to normal, whatever
Yeah.
normal was, right?
Well, because a lot of people didn't know that there was a problem until they knew
Yeah.
there was a problem, right? And
Yeah.
or it was like, you know
I'm
what,
one
I
of them.
was happy and I thought everything was going fine. And now all of a
Yeah.
sudden I've had this new experience and it's like, you know what? I'm okay with some of this. I actually
Yeah.
like it more, right? You and I talked about the whole grocery online thing. It's
Yeah.
like there's a lot of people that don't like it and will not use it as much as possible. But then there's people like you and I who have decided it's the best thing
Yeah.
ever.
And I will not stop. Yeah.
And it's a new beginning that was created at a change. It was forced in
Yeah.
some cases. And then it ends up being like, oh my gosh, this has given me freedom. This has given
Yeah.
me a different experience with grocery shopping, right? So it's how we're looking at that. And then I think that that's the whole thing behind us talking about this and allowing it to be that it's open so that you're looking at how you can empower yourself by having this extra knowledge. It's not to drive you
Right.
crazy. That moment of question where it was like you knew you needed to ask me something, it's like, okay, why am I not understanding that? Why
Yeah.
am I know that I'm all about endings and completions right now, but why is it not working with me? Why am I not understanding the fact that the universe is in a one? Like, how does that work for me?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you might not even still have 100% the answer. And you might have to think about how we've talked about this again at certain points as the month continues on. But it's going to end up being that you have a bit more of an understanding. you're a bit more aware, right, of the idea that just because other people and or the universe is going with different things doesn't mean that I have to be doing, feeling, having, tapping into all that. If I feel and know this about me now, it's like it's
Yeah.
more about me taking the time to go within to take care of me. But again, in many cases, wouldn't you say that more than ever before, that that's more like a new beginning for you?
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is
So
kind of eye-opening for me, because this, I think, is the big piece of all of this right now, is that, yeah, this has been a huge new beginning and new way of living and new way of being me. And I don't want to give it up. Like, I kind of like it, but I
you don't
just
have
never
to.
really realized.
You
Yeah,
do
but
not
I
have
think
to.
I'm thinking I have to,
Yeah. No, you don't
which
have to.
is, yeah, I need to, that's a kind of very much a eye-opening kind of, like, just the fact that that is what I'm thinking, even though I didn't really know that's what I was thinking. I knew
No,
there
I
was some.
know. And that's why breaking it up helps it, right? And it's like then the answers are going to come. And again, even if you weren't able to figure it all out now while we're together, it ends up being that it's giving you things to process. You're having moments of time within. And it's like you having that gift of and being supported to have time to go within, right? And or whether it's like you and I having this session right now, or you having to sleep for 14 hours because your body told you so, it ends up
Yeah,
being that it's like you can see where it levels you out. It allows you to be a bit more balanced in regards to maybe perhaps being more open to things, and or that you're nurtured, you're not scattered, you're more aware of what's going on. So you can see how by
yeah,
you taking care of you more, it's like, you know what, I actually really enjoy this. And I know damn straight that when I go back to work, I'm going to have more to give because I took care of me.
yeah,
And that in itself could very well be a part of that new beginning. But
yeah,
for you, it's ending and completing with the mindset of you got to do it all. Or it ends up being that
yeah,
it's like one more hour and I'll go home. Or it ends up being where it's like, no, I'm going to help them even though I'm super tired. It's like your body said, know what? No. Right.
no,
But then what
yeah,
happens is that the rest of you is matching up, more aware. And you know what? This is going to go up and down. You're going to be constantly
yeah,
learning. And it's like, I think that for all of us, the biggest thing is to realize that it's like, that is the case. It's like, we're always evolving, right? We're always having different experiences. And yes, this is your cycle for the year. But at the same time, it's like pondering and us talking a little bit about where you are right now hopefully will either inspire you or give you hope or make you have less guilt because you decided you need to have a nap,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? Yeah. Yeah. So what else do you think, that does that make sense to you as to how you can make that work and why that's what they talk about on the podcast?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, and it
Yeah.
the I did, I think, innately understand that they were talking about the 2022 year in general, but it really was, why am I feeling so much resistance to this? Like,
Yes.
because I really was. So yeah, this has been really helpful to understanding that, because I mean, I think I did know every month that, the 2022 was different than my personal stuff, but it hadn't really affected me up until this, and there was just so much resistance to it in my own head that I was like, this is weird, there's something here.
Yeah. It's like, this is not making sense.
Yeah, yeah, but
Well, and
I think I do understand. I really think it's more that I was resisting what I thought the cycle one meant for me. Like, that I think, given what's going on in the world right now, that I really am resisting and pushing back to that, going back to normal. And, instead of just realizing that my normal is my normal, it doesn't mean it's going to look like it did 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or, 2 months ago, really.
well,
So
and
that's huge. Like, it really is.
to take it back just to you and your own personal numerology, when you think about your cycle 5, one of the words we didn't talk about a lot was freedom, right? And so freedom comes with releasing and letting go, having those, the time alone to be able to kind of see what it is, but it creates that space for you, right? And so I think too, where it's like if you're looking at some of the change in the experiences that have happened, in some cases, you can see where they're all, you hopefully you can see where it's also perhaps maybe offering you up some freedom,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
right? So it's like
yeah,
freedom to be able to say no, freedom,
yeah,
and no matter what, because um, last month for you or last year was about structure, protocol, creating a foundation. It's like you did so much work last year that you get the opportunity to lean on some of the work that you did, whether it was at work, whether it was on yourself, whatever it may be. So it's like take advantage and lean in on some of those things that you created for yourself. And then that's
yeah,
what allows you to feel like there's more freedom as well, is because you've got things that are there to help you. So it's a matter of allowing it to happen.
yeah, very true.
Yeah. So, all right, my friend. That is our session for today.
Oh, and
So
you know what? I didn't It's been awesome because I had no idea what to expect. And I mean, because you and I mean, I did, we did the numerology, we did the enhanced numerology, and then I kept hearing about these empowerment sessions and I really didn't understand. Right? Like I was like, well, what more benefit is going to be there for me by doing that? I didn't really get it at all. So it was actually been really helpful because now I've got a whole other way of thinking. Like I needed it now, right? I probably didn't need it in January,
well, and I
like,
think
so
that in January you probably received so much information, you're trying to process it all and or
yeah,
whatever. And it's like it's nice to have a recap. And it's
yeah,
like whether you never do this again or whether you decide that you know what, I want to talk to Terry once a month and I want to
yeah,
talk about like what my month is about and like perhaps maybe some stuff it's like I know there's maybe perhaps more of a lesson there. Maybe if I tell her some of the stuff, she'll be able to give me some guidance and or information around it. Or it could very well be that this is enough for you to just kind of go, okay, now I get it. And then that's how I'm going to work with if I'm continuing listening with the podcast. I know what the universe is up to, but I'm always looking at my energy, what's going on with me, right?
yeah,
And then I'm always super excited when someone signs up for the empowered session. And it's like one of the things for me has always been is that I don't 100% know how to really explain what happens in a session because it ends up being that, yes, I have like, I'm always going to talk to you about numerology, but I don't know what is really going to end up being discussed until we're in the moment. Same thing when I do
yeah,
the Reiki treatments, right? Because you can come from a treatment for Reiki one day and need something and or want something, whether it's releasing. Some days you just need nurturing. Some days it's just, you just want to be like quiet and relax. Same kind of scenario where it's like we could be doing a session now and it's all about this. And then next month it could be, it's like, you know what? These are all the different things that are going on. And now I see I'm in a different cycle because you're going to be in new beginnings for the month of May,
yeah,
right? And so you're not going to always know how to do all the new beginnings. You're not always going to understand why a change has happened. And so being able to
yeah,
break it down to process it so that it can, because no matter what, knowledge is power, right? And then
yeah,
of course that's about empowerment. And then it just ends up being that it's like, if it ends up being that all of a sudden we need to talk about more about what's going on in your life when it comes to home or whatever, it's like all that stuff happens, right?
yeah.
It's like really and truly an in the now intuitive moment is really what it's
Well, at
all about.
least now I know, and I didn't know an hour ago that, I definitely what I know I need to look at just that resistance and not being afraid of May. I think
Good.
that was part of it, right? Like I was afraid of that cycle 1, like what is going to come. And now I'm like, okay, just having that awareness that that was even a part of it is something I can work on for the next, couple weeks, working
Well, and
into.
your endings and completions are happening for this month, right? And
Yeah,
remember, a lot of your endings and completions have happened based on change because that's what was happening. that's what your theme is. And
Yeah.
or it's letting go and releasing and healing, right? It's always going to be a little bit different. And it's like once you realize that, it ends up being that it's like you're not necessarily always going to know how it's going to happen, and you're a bit more open to it, allows that flow to happen. But then also being aware that it's like you just want to nurture and take care of you, right? And then those experiences are going to continue to happen. So it's like I think, just being more open to what it is, I think can be helpful for you.
Yeah.
But you're seeing that yourself, right? So all I've done today is just giving you a little bit more information about where you're at, reminding you a little bit about, what your cycle is for the year and how it works with each month. And remember, for you too, it's like how you handle and how you are with the change and the new experiences. It's like you're being supported through creativity, fun, inspiration. And so it's like the more you tap into some of that good stuff, it feeds your soul, your spirit, and it ignites you, so that it's like you're going to enjoy the experience, or you're going to be more apt to go with the flow because you have that energy, right? You've been ignited. Yeah, right now it's meant to rest. So it's like, if you give into and embrace the fact that, you know what, part of my support is rest renewal for the month of April, it prepares you for next month. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, then you are going to be that much more ready for your new beginnings in May.
Well, I'm doing a good job of it right now.
You definitely are. Yes, exactly. So yeah, so just continue to do that. And I always, the big thing too is like, I know you're a good support for many people. So it's like allowing ourselves to be able to receive the same. Right.
Yeah.
And so being open to other people offering up you an opportunity to be able to rest and or do whatever too, I think is key. So no, so
that's very true.
Yeah. All right. So I am going to end our call for today. And I just want to say thank you for.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I will see you next time.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye.